Thank you, Alexa. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the October meeting of the Union Township Planning Commission, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if we can have our flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. So roll call, please.
Albrecht,
Here, Union Township, Isabella County.
Buckley,
Here, Union Township, Isabella County.
Darren,
Here, Union Township, Isabella County.
Fuller,
Present, Union Township, Isabella County.
LaBelle,
Here, Union Township, Isabella County.
Lapp,
Here, Union Township, Isabella County.
Shingles. I don't see him on here. Squadrito,
I'm here and I'm currently in the city of Mount Pleasant in Isabella County.
and Theron.
Here, Union Township, Isabella County, Michigan.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So next item is approval of agenda. So we have our agenda for tonight. It's been pointed out that our new business item is there's a slight incorrection in the label. It should be PSPR 21-18. That's a site plan review. We had the special use earlier. So I'll indicate that we'll make that change. Anything else that anyone is aware of that needs to be on tonight's agenda? All right, if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the one change of the labeling of the new business item.
Moved.
Motions by Fuller, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Lapp. Any discussion? So I'll just ask for voice or show of hands. All in favor of approving the motion all in favor of the motion to approve the agenda with the one change, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, I would declare the motion carried, so the agenda is approved. Next item is approval of the minutes. So we last met on September 21st. So that's the next set of pages in your packet. Are there any corrections to the September 21st minutes? I did notice one, the last page, item C. On the roll call, so Darren was not at the meeting. So Darren, I think the roll call vote for item C should be Thering instead of Darren. Any others? Not, I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
So moved.
Motion is by LaBelle. Is there a second?
A second.
Second is by Albrecht. Any further discussion? If not, just ask again for a voice and or hand signal vote. All in favor of approving the minutes with that one change, please say aye or raise your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. So we have our minutes. And I assume we noticed that Commissioner Shingles has arrived, so we're all here. Okay, so next item is correspondence, board reports and presentations. First item is Thering updates from Board of Trustees. Any updates?
You know, I've been wondering what kind of information you're looking for. Would you guys like a recap of the meeting? Or are you looking for something just specific to Planning Commission? Because I have something, I just did like a recap of the last couple of meetings. Some of the stuff's kind of interesting, some of it may not be.
Well, typically they've focused, I would say that they've focused on things that are relevant to us, like actions on recommendations that we've made or appointments or other sorts of things. But, you know, we have a relatively light agenda tonight. So if there's something you want to report to us, I think we're open to it.
Okay. And that's, I kind of assume that part of it. On September 22nd, we had a public hearing for Carriage Hill Estates. It's a special assessment district for their subdivision road paving. It's just a many step process that they go through to get that completed. On the 6th of October, we had a special meeting. We talked about the cost, trying to develop some way to do a cost sharing for subdivision road repairs. It was unsuccessful, though. There was just no way with the way the funds are that we could, unfortunately, that we could put monies towards that. We talked about the ARPA funds that are coming in 2 waves of 700,000 each. Looks like 700,000 will come in this year, and then in 12 months later, another 700,000. Just different ways that we can use that, legally use that money. And then talked about public safety service level. There's a grant out there for potential officer where we would do some cost sharing. The grant would pay a percentage for 3 years. The township would pay a percentage. And then I think the final year, the township would be required 100%, if I heard that correctly. And we're just doing some fact finding on that. And the last meeting, October 13th, we had public hearings for the East and West District Development Tax Incremental Financing Plans, which is a renewal of tax capture for the East and West DDAs to use that money for improving, promoting business. So it had a 10-year plan that just is going to end. And we just renewed it for another 20 years to continue on doing that. And lastly, we started our fiscal year 2022 budget discussion. So none of the appointments as of yet, but as they come in, I'll pass it along.
Okay. Any questions for Commissioner Thering on Board of Trustees related matters? Okay, well, thanks for that report. Oh, Commissioner Lau.
Been any discussion of how you think the township wants to spend the money that you're getting, the 700,000?
Yeah, well, yes, and this was just a preliminary talks because we were just, you know, we have lots of ideas, but not all the ideas that we have that we could actually legally do. We were given a handout of 4 things that we could use them towards, but each one of those we may have an avenue to go in other places. But just well, the first one is it's public health and economic impacts due to COVID. Funds, we could use funds for that, but now obviously there's a lot of things that could entail. So we haven't quite narrowed anything down in that respect. 2, there's infrastructure, which is like water and sewer or broadband. 3, if we had any lost revenue. And 4, which we really didn't discuss, but it's retroactive premium pay. So we just basically touched on each of those items and how we may be able to get in deeper into those. What do those actually entail? And then as we progress, I'll be happy to pass any information along if you're interested. So just more of just the beginning discussion of.
Thank you.
Okay, other questions? Okay, before we move on, I know where you are, but I guess I want to make sure that we confirm Commissioner Shingles' location for the minutes.
I am in Mount Pleasant.
Okay, thanks. So next item is Buckley updates from ZBA. I know you met before our last meeting, but have you met since?
No, we actually had our October 6th meeting was canceled due to a lack of agenda items. And we've already been notified that our November meeting was canceled as well. So best shot we have looking at it will be an early December meeting. I don't know if Peter or Peter or Rodney might have some idea of whether or not we expect any agenda items in the coming months or not.
Don't have anything in the hopper at the moment.
All right.
Very happy to report that.
We'll still continue to ask, just so you don't feel forgotten. Next one is Darren, updates from Sidewalk and Pathways.
I don't have an update, but I do have, I would love to know where we stand on the progress of our 2021 budget. And maybe Rodney can just give us a real summary of any progress we made with design and engineering or construction.
So actually, the Sidewalk Committee has a meeting scheduled for next Tuesday. So Mike, you're going to be getting an agenda packet shortly for that. I'm not really prepared at the moment to go into detail, but I certainly can for the committee, and then I can for the Plan Commission next month if you'd like.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any questions for, I should have asked for questions for Ryan as well, but any questions for our representative to Sidewalks and Pathways? Okay, not seeing any. We'll go ahead and close that back up for until the next meeting. So we have a presentation tonight. If you remember, we approved a while back a set of, isn't this the folks we approved some solar panels for at one point? Or maybe not. Maybe it's a different group. But in any case, Coin Zion Lutheran Church proposal to increase the maximum height allowed for solar energy facilities. So there was a handout in your packet, a series of slides or visuals and so on, some text. So Rodney's bringing them across, whoever's going to speak on the group's behalf. And so we'll go ahead and give you an opportunity to talk to us for a few minutes here.
So David Coyne is with us. Dave, who do I need to bring over in addition to you?
Jason from Quality Solar.
Thank you. There we go. I see him. So he'll be over in a moment.
Okay.
Can everyone hear me all right?
Yep, we hear you.
Yep. Great. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jason Bloomquist from Quality Solar. Here with Dave Coyne to just talk about a new application of solar that we've been deploying very successfully, very frequently over the last two or 3 years or so. And if we all have the packet in front of us, I'm just going to touch on a couple key points of that. I'll just kind of narrate what page I'm on. I'm not going to read it to everybody. Because my main question here tonight is to hear your questions and hopefully answer any questions or concerns you have about this new solar application and discuss how we might be able to get an amendment making this doable in Union Township. So I will start with contents. We've got some data sheets, a description of the dual axis tracker, stamped drawings to indicate this is a specifically engineered device. And then I'm just going to verbally talk about the behavior and tilt angles and what heights this tracker behaves at, and then a production breakdown. So I am currently on the page titled Sun Action 42 Dual Axis Tracker Data Sheet. This just gives a good demonstration of how we have now the availability to deploy solar panels in a much smaller linear footprint and get the same production out of a much smaller piece of land than we would in the standard ground mounted solar panels that most people are familiar with. For purposes of my presentation, I will just refer to these devices as the tracker. When I say ground mount, I'm referring to a standard 2-panel high ground mounted solar array. I'm sure you've all seen some of those over the township. Please feel free to stop me at any time if anyone has any questions. We're going down to the next page. It says Sun Action 42 panel dual axis tracker data sheet. This gives you a good visual representation of the actual construction of the tracker. If you notice the backside, this is a pre-engineered, pre-assembled unit. Some of the features of it are that it uses actual real-time sun data sensing to align itself ideally with the sun. This is it's a moving structure, which we'll talk a little bit about coming up here. So sometimes this structure is less than 20 feet, but every once in a while when it's picking up the sun, it will go to its maximum tilt, which is 21 feet, 9 inches. I'm gonna move down. Actually, I'll talk about these components a little bit because it does kind of lend to the aesthetic appeal of this tracker. The components come with a real great finish. They're well engineered. They're all completely sealed off. These things are definitely made to withstand and to also not look like some type of monstrosity. There's some aesthetic appeal to these components. If we're looking at the slew drive and the actuator, those are the moving parts that make the tracker perform as it does. The tracker description. So the 42 panel dual axis tracker is the largest single unit solar array that is available to solar installers. I did a very broad, very detailed search of other companies out there that sell dual axis tracking solar arrays, and most of them can only accommodate 24 solar panels. That is their largest availability. Sun Action, on the other hand, has come out with this 42 panel, 72 cell solar array, 72 cell being pretty industry standard for a commercial grade solar panel. Second paragraph on the tracker description indicates that this is going to give us approximately 35% more production per area than a ground mounted solar array would. Again, because it follows the sun throughout the day and is always tilting itself to be optimally perpendicular with the rays of the sun. Has a 270-degree field of rotation. It begins in the morning, 45 degrees northeast, puts itself to bed at night at 315 degrees northwest. So it is following the sun the second it comes up over the horizon until it retreats. This picture is an actual in-field picture of one of our 42 trackers that we have deployed. If you notice, the y-axis from grade is 21 feet 9 inches. That's when this tracker is fully tilted at its maximum angle of 62 degrees. Also noted on this picture is a 2-foot lead edge for the tracker. If you've ever been to coin oil and propane or seen some of those, we do like to build them up a little higher just to make sure that when the snow drifts, we don't have a situation where the device might get stuck in a heavy snowbank. the picture also notes we got a 40-foot linear footprint on this tractor. This thing is 40 feet wide. Now I'm on the page stamped load specs of the 42 panel dual axis tractor. This is just a demonstration that this device has been tested, stamped and sealed. We have the Texas seal here, but those are, these tractors are stamped in every single state. Scroll down to another page. We're looking at the dimensional layout of the 42 panel dual axis tracker. This one is a great demonstration of the actual height of the tractor. I've highlighted the top right picture indicating that the tractor is 21 feet 9 inches at maximum tilt. And when it is flat, which is every single evening when it retreats, it's 12 feet 5 inches from grade. So there is, you know, significant height differences that this thing is actually at throughout the course of any given day. The behavior and tilt of the dual axis tracker, I can't very well demonstrate that. I'd love to give some type of graphic presentation if you'd like, when we can all return in person, hopefully sooner than later. One thing Dave Coyne would be happy to do is host a demonstration at Coyne Oil and Propane. If anyone wants to see these things move, we can control it and kind of just go through a demonstration of how this is going to act throughout the day. So we all have a real life representation of how large these devices are. But on any given day, the tracker is going to start in its flat stowed position until the sun hits those sensors. So it spends the night at 12 feet 5 inches above grade. When the sensors pick up the sun on the eastern horizon, the tracker is going to bring itself to a pretty high tilt angle in order to catch that sun optimally. And that is when the tracker has potential to be taller than 20 feet. As the sun moves across the sky, especially in our high production season from March through October, the tracker is going to be optimally tilted at less than 60 degrees. I'd say 30 to 40 degrees, depending on the time of year. Flatter in the summertime than in the spring and fall. And the tracker will spend most of its time at this 30 to 40 degree angle, which is probably somewhere between 18 and 20 feet throughout most of the day during the high production season. But then again, during the evening, as the sun retreats over the western horizon, the tracker is going to go into that higher tilt just to continue to track the sun all the way down across the horizon. At that point, it will flatten out at 12 feet 5 inches and rotate itself back to its morning position at 45 degrees northeast. So again, it's a moving object, moving structure. Spends most of its time less than 20 feet tall, but there are some times of the year and some times of the day where it will be at its maximum tilt and will be 21 feet 9 inches above grade. The next page are some very hard production numbers to show what these devices are capable of versus the industries that are the standard older application of a fixed ground mount. So we are using a 16.8 kilowatt DC panel setup. That is 16,800 watts. That's the 72 cell 400 watt panels. Those are industry standard at the moment. 72 cell panels putting out about 400 watts. You can see the dual axis tracker, only one of the dual axis trackers, by the way, will produce a projected 31,375 kilowatt hours of energy a year. Kilowatt hours being what anyone's electrical bill is measured in, how much we produce and use. Below that, you'll see a picture of a 42 panel standard fixed tilt ground mount. The same amount of solar panels is going to produce 23,133 kilowatt hours. So you can definitely see the trackers in that probably 40 to 50% higher production range. 42 panels is going to have a 70-foot lateral footprint, and the 42 panel dual axis tracker 40-foot lateral footprint on a 270 degree field of rotation. That looks like it concludes all of the materials that I presented. A couple of the other things I just wanted to mention is that the 20-foot height restriction on your solar ordinance that you folks already have is, in my experience, an incredibly generous allotment for height. And we would just love to be able to show what these devices are and how maybe if we could perhaps amend that to a 25-foot height restriction. I don't see anything coming down the road in the next few years that would be too much larger than that. I don't think these devices are going to get too much bigger and too much wider and still be able to be mounted as a single unit. The advantages to allowing these devices, these large solar trackers in your community, are that it opens up the possibility for more residents to put solar on their lots when they don't necessarily have that 70 to 80 foot east to west space available, and keeping them, they're 21 feet 9 above grade. So even on a concrete pad, you could keep this tracker under 25 feet, not be necessarily burdensome to, or unnecessarily burdensome to any more lines of sight, and still allow this technology, which is definitely the wave of the future. That is all I have at the moment. Again, mostly would love to hear anybody's questions, or if maybe Dave had something to add.
Well, I'm just trying to help our church out. My brother and I are going to donate this to our church, and you can see by the ones that coin oil and propane that we know how to put them in, and they're just a top quality. And I've seen some other panels and some other trackers out there that just don't meet, I mean, just aren't built very nice. But in building these and building the bases and all that, it's just, and I've been out there and put the panels together in the ones you see at Coin Oil. They're just high quality, stainless steel bolts, aluminum cross members. You know, they don't get rusty. They're tracking the sun. Each of them have a weather station on them to track the weather. And if it got too windy, I mean, they're good for Texas, where Jason, what are they, like 100 mile an hour? And then I don't know exactly what the miles per hour of wind, but they'll go flat in case they get up, there's too much wind. So they're just top quality. And you know, see, we have solar at all of our offices in the state of Michigan now. Trackers just at a few of them, but most of them are here. I don't know, just the regulations, maybe just coming in line of going from 20 feet in your regulations to 25 feet. And like Jason said, I don't think anything else is going to change over the next decade or so. It's not like we're going to come back and ask for, if we went to 25 and come back and ask for 30 in a couple of years, it probably won't ever happen. But maybe, you know, energy is not getting any cheaper. Every year they ask for more increases. So what we're doing, we just want to help the church, and we know this is top quality stuff. And
I'm glad you mentioned it.
Go ahead, Jay.
I'm glad you mentioned energy, Dave. One of the other advantages of these trackers, as I mentioned, is you can put a lot of solar in a smaller area, which opens it up for more people. Maybe not necessarily in residential neighborhoods. I wouldn't recommend that, but in maybe ag, resi, medium-sized lots, where when we start making this change to electric vehicles and our consumption goes up by at least 30% overnight, if somebody wants to subsidize that consumption with solar, this tracker makes it more possible for them. Again, if they didn't have the room for the normal application, which would be the ground mounted solar, right? This puts them in the ballpark.
Well, my brother has one out in Chippewa Township, and he has a tracker that's not as big as this, but he had to go with a little higher pedestal to get above the trees to track the sun. And you know, so it's a coming thing, and maybe, and I think the ordinances the way they are right now are little outdated. So.
Okay, well, thanks for the presentation, and it is open for questions if any commissioners have any questions right now. Commissioner Buckley, looks like.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions that are, I mean, it's really just more curiosity than anything. So this is going to be donated to the church, and is it fair to assume, how does it work in terms of the generation itself? Is that the church will use some of that electricity, but then the excess generation will go back out to utility? How does that work in terms of?
It's this, we had it figured, we were going to figure out, take all their energy. We're just going to knock their bill down. We're not going to go into a production meter. At Coin Oil, we have production meters where we're producing it, and we sell it to consumers for less than what they charge us, but less transmission fees. But it's we didn't really want to do a production meter out there. All we're going to do is knock a good part of the bill down to help the church.
And just out of curiosity again, is a production meter something that could be added in later if that was a decision to do so?
I think,
okay.
you could. If we say we wanted to put another tracker up there, and we have plans to have a school over the years, we've been talking about having a school there. We already have daycare and preschool, but we could do a production meter, and we could add another one of these, and we'd be over, and then they would be paying the church so much. And say if it's for wattage, we're paying 16 cents for a kilowatt. Consumers would give us 12 cents back as we put it out to them. And that's what we're doing at Coin Oil now.
Okay.
We have them on top of all our buildings also out there too, but we're doing a lot of tank refurbishing, and sometimes not all the motors are running, but we met all the requirements for consumers to get the tax credits and all this. But there's no tax credits with a church, which is that's the best way to do it, is to get a tax credit. But in this instance, we're not going to get a tax credit. It's just Mark and I want to help our church.
Absolutely. The other question I had was just for my own education, in terms of the actual movement of the panels. I'm guessing, and maybe I'm wrong, I'm guessing at dawn and dusk that it's a perceptible movement as it's leveling or rising. As it's tracking throughout the day, I'm guessing that's probably kind of imperceptible unless you're just sitting and watching them.
Absolutely, Ryan. This thing adjusts itself very, very subtly, but relatively frequently. Nothing you could sit and watch from a distance.
Right.
You'd have to be up close to see it move a matter of inches at a time.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we've got Commissioner Darren, and then we'll go to Commissioner Lab.
Thank you. My question is, this 42 panel display, is that a typical size that you would put in a residential for a single unit house, or is this more for something for a commercial or industrial application? Is there a difference? Meaning, would you put a smaller unit in a single resident lot?
It all depends, Mike, on the home's consumption. We do have 5 42 panel dual axis trackers in residential deployment with very high consumption homes. At least 3 of those homes already have an EV, and they had the consumption levels to justify it. So what we do, what we have to do, is size our solar systems based upon the last 12 months of consumption at the customer's residence, or depending on what they're going to put in. If someone's going to get a new electrical panel or add an air-to-air pump or something, we account for that in our system design. So everything we do is designed specifically towards the customer's last 12 months of consumption. And these dual axis trackers are, again, we're going to put out 33,000 kilowatt hours a year. And some homes use that much, particularly if you've got Geo electric vehicle, young people, lots of them running around, tend to use a little more power than other homes.
So just assuming that no matter, because line of sight, getting above trees, getting above neighbors' houses, getting above fences, whatever, you're most likely going to try and lift your solar panels to that maximum height to get the most sunlight. Is that a good assumption, or are you trying to keep it close to the ground?
No, Mike, that's a fair assumption. This, again, a 40-foot wide thing that's receiving more sun throughout the day. Say we've got a tree line closer to one side or the other, a 40-foot wide sunny spot. If that's not possible, if there's not a 70-foot wide sunny spot, then yeah, that's another reason that we would deploy one of these. We have one down in Eaton Rapids for that exact reason, is the gentleman had just a very high level of consumption, around 32,000 kilowatt hours a year, but not the space for what would be required for a ground mounted solar array.
Okay. And what typically is it really matter the location and how many trees and all that as to how much area they need in their backyard, front yard, whatever it is?
Absolutely.
Very unique each situation.
Yeah, the less shade, the better. So if I have two tree lines 200 yards away, at some point during the day, that might potentially shade my center point, obviously depending on the height of those tree lines. But if I concentrate where the solar is being collected into a smaller linear area, then it's going to get more light throughout the course of the day.
Okay. So your request in working with Dave is every zoning area you'd like to have maximum height of 25 feet. Doesn't matter what size, doesn't matter how many panel, I mean. It just
that would be up to you folks. I'm hesitant to even make a recommendation like that because your ordinance is so good and so generous, but 25 feet, again, I feel confident that that can be met at all times, even building these things up a little bit to keep them out of the snow. And I don't see anything in the future where, especially in like an ag or limited residential area, we would need too much more than that.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to limit us either. I'm just trying to figure out if there's a reason why we would limit it in our residential areas versus commercial or industrial areas. So
this tracker, or the trackers we have right now, and then that 21 foot 9 inches is that's the max. That for the majority of the summer that they are really needed and used the most. They're not even at that height. It's more like in the winter time, because they're really trying to grab the sun. The angle has to be. I guess I'm trying to say, Jason, isn't it the angle of it is less than 20 feet most of the summer. We're just talking from like late like December through like March, where it's getting at that 21 foot 9 inches. The rest of the time it's below 20 feet. Okay. I mean, if we wouldn't have brought this up, you might not ever known the difference, but we're telling you the max is at this one with it built at a standard rate off the ground is 21.9. But 25 foot would give us a little bit more out of the ground, and then it would take care of all future solar, as far as Jason and I know, needs down the road, and get Union Township up to speed, which there, Jason can probably tell you of a lot of other counties and townships that he's been talking at, that they've understood that too and came around.
Okay,
All right.
thank you.
So next is Commissioner Lapp with a question.
I have a couple questions. First, are you proposing a single panel? A single tracker
You're right.
or multiple trackers?
Just one tracker.
Just one
right
tracker.
now.
And do you know where they're proposing or thinking about putting it on the lot?
Yes. Right
Is
in
it
the,
off? If this
we
is
have
the-
30 acres there at the church, and I'm
Okay.
the head of the trustees for it. And we're actually going to put it almost in the middle of the property behind the church on River Road, 3401 East River Road. It won't even be seen from the road. And it's just, they're just nice setups, but,
And are there any reflection issues when it's at maximum tilt?
Any what?
Reflection issues.
I'll field that one. The solar panels are obviously designed to absorb light, and they have a stippled tempered glass, Jessica, which decreases, reflection and refraction. So they're definitely engineered. Every solar panel I've ever used anyway is definitely engineered to not be reflective.
Okay.
They actually use them at airports, which is just evidence that they're not that reflective.
Now we have them on our roof, but obviously we're not up there to look at the reflection on them. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I give a few questions. I'm assuming that the movement, they're self-powered. Do they use their own power to move themselves? Or do they need to be powered by something else?
We actually just run a 110 line fill into the tracker control box. So when I'm constructing these, I run two conduits, one for the 240 volts from the solar power going back to the load center, and then 110 coming out. I've jumped off a sub panel right at the array before too, but basically it runs off the AC power of wherever we're wiring to.
So they don't use their own power to move themselves, I guess is what you're saying.
Not exactly.
Okay, that's fine.
Kind of like they're making power as they're consuming.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
a little bit.
I get you. And then another question, and you kind of got to this with Ryan, but in the mornings and the evenings when they're raising themselves up and sitting themselves down, if I'm standing there, how much sound are they making?
It's a minimal droning sound. The motor itself isn't, I don't have like a horsepower equivalent to it, but the motor itself is, about the size of this Yeti cup here. And so it only emits so much noise. It's pretty well encased, more like a whirring than anything else. I wish I don't really have anything to compare to. I don't notice it anymore.
Yeah.
So it's not terribly obtrusive.
And that probably isn't even perceptible during the times of day where it's literally, very, very slowly precessing or whatever you want to call it with the sun.
Correct. You won't be able to observe movement unless you're standing right under it, and you wouldn't be able to hear it unless you were within, pretty close proximity as well.
Yeah. Okay. And then I guess my last question, and again, you dealt with it and Dave dealt with it earlier, but the traditional ones, especially the 70 footers, they're anchored to the ground in 3 or 4 spots. This one is only anchored to the ground in 1 spot, but you're saying that it's programmed so that if it detects a certain level of wind, it will flatten itself out. I mean, are there any cases of tornadoes or sub tornadoes where these things have become detached and become kind of airborne?
Not to my knowledge. The whole mounting structure as far as solar panel to array is rated for 115 miles an hour wind, which is an extremely high amount. The tracker, I program all of mine to go flat at a sustained 22 mile an hour wind. That's picked up by the anemometer on the tracker, and they'll flatten themselves out, continuously track, and then they need a sustained, another sustained 10 seconds of wind below that to return to their normal function. As far as the actual mounting into the ground, we use at minimum, a 6 foot by 6 foot by 6 foot pad. And they're 1-inch rebar bolts coming out of a cage that hold the down post to it, with 32 1-inch galvanized nuts on that. So it's pretty secure, and it's all engineered for very high wind loads. Dave mentioned this is a company out of Texas, and they actually deploy them in hurricane areas. So I haven't heard of having any problems with wind.
Yeah. So in Texas, will they withstand baseball-sized hail, or will
The
that
solar
tear them
panels
apart?
will.
Say that again.
Yeah, the solar panels will withstand that hail.
Oh wow. Okay.
Those are factory rated for well, they're factory tested for a golf ball sized piece of hail at 100 miles an hour.
Okay.
We had a storm come through down here that hit Ovid, Michigan pretty bad, if anyone's familiar. And a lady with a solar array of ours had holes in her screen, the size of a baseball, and the panels themselves were untouched.
If anyone wants to come and take a look at them, I would be glad to give you a tour and show you how we built them, and we had heck of a bases in the ground, all with re-rod and cement, and they're just very sturdy. I mean,
Very good. Other questions from commissioners? Well, you've definitely given us something to think about here. So we appreciate the report, and we'll take this under advisement, and we'll go from there.
okay, well, thank you. And a few of you on this board have my cell phone number. So if you don't want to go through Coin Oil, just give me a call, and I'd meet you out there, and I can show you our setup. Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Okay. That was interesting. So next item on the agenda is public comment. So this is the portion of the meeting where individuals are invited to address the Planning Commission on items that are not on tonight's agenda. So if you have a comment on something that is not under consideration tonight and you'd like to comment to us, hit the raise hand button and make that known, and we'll bring you across and allow you to make your comment and go from there. So the public comment portion of the meeting is open at 7:50. And I don't see any. I'm going to assume that the attendees are here for the other agenda item. So seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that back up. We'll have extended public comment later. So we'll move on to new business. So we have one new business item tonight. This is PSPR Site Plan Review 21-18, final site plan review for the county jail and sheriff's office. And so you have in your packets the plans, the various paperwork, and the staff report. But I will ask Rodney to, well, bring the folks across, but also give us any words to the wise that you want to pass along. We obviously have your report, but
I'll just make a few comments before I bring them across, so that just make sure they hear what I said. You have our report, dated October 2nd. This item is on the agenda mainly because the applicants asked for it to be here. They have substantially addressed the site plan, the information requirements, as noted in our report. There are a few items just I'll highlight on the second page of a report, page 71 of the packet. Down at the bottom, we have some comments about the landscaping and screening. The applicants have met the requirements for landscaping and screening. They did request on the plan one modification, which they can do per section 10.7 of our ordinance. And that is to take all the shrubs that are required and group them together around the parking lot. This is mainly, the benefit is it helps to cut headlight glare related to the parking lot. So that is a modification that they've requested. You'll see that on the landscape plan. And from a staff perspective, we have no objection to the modification. I think it's actually a good design overall. Page 3 of our report, section 7 talks about sidewalks. They do show a public sidewalk along the whole Remus Road frontage on their site plan sheet. It's shown a large portion of it shown in a dotted line. That's the portion that they are requesting to receive a temporary relief from construction per our sidewalk relief policy. They are proposing to extend the sidewalk from their west property line to the first driveway, and then from the first driveway into the site. That part would be constructed. So here again, they've made that request for a temporary waiver for the rest of it heading over towards US 127. If you're in agreement with that, approval of the final site plan as presented would include the granting of that temporary relief. A couple of other items. We noted at the beginning of our report the original motion by the Board of Trustees for approval of the special use permit. We included that mainly because the applicants have not met those conditions yet. In particular, they do not yet have their approval from the Township Public Services Department. Verifying water and sewer access, we don't have a concern about that, but the details have not yet been approved. The more pressing issue is related to item 8 in our report, East Remus Road access improvements. The condition for the special use permit was that the applicant would complete the roadway paving as shown on the plan, which they still show paving up to that east driveway. But that they would also take care of the additional width, surface, and turnaround area improvements along the remainder of East Remus Road to US 127. They're proposing to retain the remainder of that road as a gravel road. It had been, when this process started, what I called an unimproved road. The road commission has since gone in and done some improvements to that road this year. But it still does not meet the condition as was put on the special use permit. In particular, the issues with the turnaround area. The road itself, the gravel surface is 2 lanes wide, so you can get 2 cars abreast through it. The shoulder and drainage are somewhat questionable just because it's all overgrown at the moment. But the issue is basically with the turnaround. The turnaround is sloped to the center of the turnaround, which basically means that in any rain event, you have a mud puddle or a large muddy area in the center of that turnaround. During the winter months, that basically gets torn up and it's just a mess. And it's all because the slope is going inward instead of outward. What needs to be done is that turnaround needs to be improved to the proper dimensions and also the proper drainage to drain water off of it to the outside rather than into the center of the turnaround. So at this point, the applicant has not yet satisfied that special use permit requirement. They had been promising us the information of what would be done to do that. We have not seen anything further from them yet. With that in mind, we did make a recommendation, include a recommendation for approval, subject to the relief being granted for the sidewalk, subject to the outside agency permits being taken care of, but also subject to documenting how they're going to comply with that special use standard. If you're comfortable with that being reviewed as administrative detail, we're comfortable with it from a staff perspective to a conditional approval tonight. You also have the option to direct the applicant to address that issue of the turnaround and get that information on the plans before you take action on it. So that's up to you as to what your comfort level is. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and then I can bring the applicants over.
Okay. Are there any questions on what Rodney just said? Okay, seeing none, I'd say it's okay to bring them over. So welcome, gentlemen. I'll turn the floor over to you if there's anything you'd like to say about the project by way of introduction, and then we'll move into questions and consideration.
All right, I'll start. Can everybody hear me first of all? All right, great. My name is Daryl DeHaan with Integrated Architecture, representing Isabella County here. I've met virtually most of you through the series of meetings that we've had. First, appreciate your time, appreciate the township's comments and availability through the process. Thanks, Commission, for your time tonight. Rodney did a great job, I think, in outlining, excuse me, what the design team has been through and just addressing some of the concerns, mainly around screening, as he mentioned. I'm happy to bring up a plan, although I don't think it's really necessary. We may want to as we talk about the Remus Road component, but from a design standpoint, the building remains unchanged. Nothing about its architecture has changed at all for the purpose of our conversation here tonight. We have made some adjustments, as Rodney stated, to the site, mainly around screening. We've added some additional screening along the western detention basin, just for, as he mentioned, some of the concern for headlight glare. We have made the modification to the landscape, bringing in shrubs internal to the site to be a little bit more immediate to the parking area. We agree. I think it's makes a little bit more sense and perhaps more practical for the screening here. You can just see the density of pine trees screening that we've added to the western detention basin. We have brought that internal a little bit more, pulled it away from the western property boundary. A little bit of concern about just herbicides, pesticides, things of that nature, and just their impact on the landscaping there. Have added some screening along the staff or the county's patrol car and emergency vehicle turnaround in the Sallyport area. So just making that a little bit more dense. There were some concerns about snow plowing, removal, storage. Those areas are all shaded in gray on this plan. Regarding the site, I don't think there's anything more that needs to be said about the sidewalk relief request. Rodney specified that pretty well. We are proposing a sidewalk starting at the western property boundary, crossing the western drive, and then coming internal to the site. And then the relief that we are seeking basically begins at from that point there where the cursor is to the eastern boundary of the site. That really, there is some little bit of concern, or rather just a question raised about the south boundary of the site. I just wanted, I think, perhaps maybe a little bit higher degree of comfort about its existing screening, the vegetation in that area. We went through and did a bit of an abbreviated tree survey and just provided some additional background information that you all have in your packets about the type of vegetation, the heights, the density, calipers, etc., species along that south boundary. So we, as mentioned in the on the landscape plan, there is no intent on any part of this project to disturb or remove any of the vegetation along that south property line. I think that highlights the site, the internal site matter. On the Remus Road front, I have Troy Grunder here from Row with me tonight. There's been a lot of back and forth with the Isabella County Road Commission, and we've been working with them diligently to make sure we conform with their standards. Most recently, as of last night, we did get a email from Pat Gaffney that was, I believe, forwarded to Peter, who was on this call, indicating their approval with what's shown as the extents of the project for the paving extents. They did have a couple of points about the condition and the suitability of the subsurface or the gravel base. This team is continuing to investigate that and provide the appropriate information through soil borings and tests to ensure that the asphalt topping meets and the subgrade meets the county standards. But for the purposes of the status of the of Remus Road that's shown dashed beyond the extents of what we're proposing for this project, the Road Commission has signed off on that being suitable for their use. Troy, you can chime in on anything additional to that point. I think that's really the crux of it.
Yeah, Daryl's correct. Pat Gaffney has approved the limits of improvements, the limits of construction on East Remus Road. He has asked us to just verify the material classification of both the sand sub base and the aggregate and the existing aggregate to reuse as base. Depending on how those results come back, will ultimately determine our final cross section. We may need to replace the existing aggregate that's there to a more suitable road base. And we're also going to have 3 soil borings done out there just to determine existing aggregate and sand subbase thicknesses. So, but as far as the limits go, Pat and the Road Commission are happy with what we are showing now.
So I think if I may, I want to make sure that make this clear. The special use standard requested documentation of the additional improvements along that road, and the discussion was that especially the turnaround area was not suitable for turning around emergency vehicles or other large vehicles that might end up down there. And so it's one thing for the Road Commission to say, yeah, you don't need to pave any further than the driveway that you're coming in on, but it's something entirely different to meet the standard of the special use permit, which did direct that the additional road length, and especially that turnaround, needs to be set up properly. And so I do want you to understand that just because the Road Commission has said, no, you don't need to pave any further than that driveway, that does not resolve the special use permit standard condition. So that turnaround area needs to be addressed. It really needs to be graded properly to drain off of it instead of to the center. That I think is the major issue. That if it did that, then you probably would have sufficient area out there for to meet the Road Commission standard for a cul-de-sac turnaround. But it drains the wrong direction right now, so it's just a mucky mess during these times of the year, and that needs to be fixed. So just understand that the Road Commission sign off on your paving length is not going to satisfy that special use permit condition.
Okay. So any further comments from the applicants before we open it up to questions from commissioners? Jim Horton?
Yeah, hi. Jim Horton, Isabella County Commissioner District 4, also board chairperson. I'm here tonight. I did not attend my 7 p.m. meeting tonight, which we have our business at 4 o'clock business meeting and our work session at 7 because I consider this a top priority for our county. And I guess I just have a couple issues. One, this is very important. Obviously, this is the $41.5 million project that's been, we've changed one site already. Several reasons why, one not being access to water, one not being proper, whether or not we had the capacity for sewer. The site had some issues with it too. So we moved it and found a better site, we thought. Access to water, access to sewer met our needs. Plenty of land that didn't have neighborhoods around it. Tried to be community oriented, talk to community groups. I sit here tonight very frustrated. I'm a person who likes to go from A to B. And I see a $41.5 million project being held up possibly, and I'm very upset about that. I think I've shared it with Daryl and the group, and Troy. They've heard me rant and rave, and I apologize to them for ranting and raving to them, but that's just how I am. But I don't understand a couple things. One, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but that's okay. I'll address the lesser concerns first. The issue with the Union Township issue with the public utilities. Okay, that's a Union Township matter. That should be able to be worked out pretty easily. The turnaround situation, I don't understand the purpose of why the county has to improve upon what, I guess what the road commission states, why they have to go above and beyond that. If you look at the property now, there's no turnaround. That the previous applicants or the previous property owners never had to deal with that, never had to improve the road beyond that. So there is some standard there. I don't know, what the costs of the taxpayers are going to be in regards to this and why we're having to do that. Obviously, I don't want to have this project delayed. We've been delayed long enough. I don't want to potentially lose this site over this. I think this is, I don't know what word I'm going with this. This is, I hear the word substantially and all these other things, but I tell you, I've been very quiet, and I'm still going to continue to be quiet. I'm not going to let my full frustration come out, but this is frustrating. This needs to get done. And I understand we all have a planning commission to do, and I encourage you to do whatever conditions you feel is best planning commission. I've been in your shoes, actually. I sat in your chairs. Well, not on the panel here tonight. I haven't sat in your homes or anything, but I was a planning commission member for all 4 years as my trustee when I was on the Union Township board. So I am well aware of the position you hold. I was 8 years on the Isabella County Planning Commission. So I do know it's not an easy thing. You probably heard people like myself get up and complain to you and moan and groan and everything like that. So I get it. I mean, I completely get it. I'm just telling you what it is to this community to get this project going. We can't have any more delays. We've already delayed it enough. And I'm putting off the seller. I'm trying to get a signing date set, and I need to get some firm, hard dates for this gentleman, this two gentlemen. So that being said, like I said, I've been in your shoes. I fully support you, fully support the board, the planning commission here. I'm not like I'm ripping on anybody or anything like that. It's just, we need to get this project shovels in the ground, get it going. And this shouldn't be this hard. Sheriff Maines, he's got his work cut out for him going forward, trying to get everything organized and done. And we've got to get this going. We're going to have some major issues with our jail sooner rather than later. So that's all I have. Like I said, this is a public need and it can't be delayed, but I get what you're saying and I get the motions, but if you do anything, at least grant tonight and we'll meet the conditions because, again, I don't understand the turnaround though. I really don't know why we have to go above and beyond what the road commission is stating. That to me, I don't know why. That to me throws me. So,
all right. So we appreciate your comments. We've heard them. This is, I don't know whether this falls under public comment, in which case it would have been out of order because we don't have public comment on site plan reviews. You are the chair of the county commission, so I've given you a fair amount of latitude to make your comments. We've heard them and we'll do our due diligence and we'll act accordingly.
Thank you.
So why don't you beam Mr. Horton back to the other side since he's not an applicant, but thanks for your comments.
Rodney and the commission, the design team has no further comments or questions.
Okay, so then I'm going to open it to commissioners. Questions from commissioners for the applicants or for township staff or comments. Commissioner Fuller.
Yeah, what was the actual wording of the condition for improving that road based on the preliminary plan?
You can actually find it on the first page of our report, down to the bottom in the bold. You'll see the motion that was made to grant the special use permit. It was actually that was the see, essentially the road access is an integral element for whether a use is appropriate on a particular site. I understand Mr. Horton's comments, but this is directly related to the use of the site. And so that's why the question of whether Remus Road was properly set up to support this far more intensive activity than the farm field that's there now is what brought up the question of improving the turnaround area and ensuring the whole length of the road allows for two-way traffic. From what I gathered, and I'll certainly let Troy correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like the comments from the road commission did not address the turnaround, that they only addressed the paving. So if I'm mistaken, that's great. If they say that turnaround area meets their standards, first of all, I'd be surprised. But secondly, that's something that we can certainly look at and make a determination. Nobody's asking them to do more than what the standard would be. But I do know that the standard for a gravel cul-de-sac turnaround is that it has positive drainage to the outside, not to the center. And right now, this one has negative drainage. It drains to the center of the cul-de-sac. And so, like I said, in rain events, the whole thing just becomes a mud pit. And so I cannot imagine that current cul-de-sac turnaround actually meets the county standards that would relate to having positive drainage to protect the quality and character of the road itself.
So Rodney, the road commission has approved the limits of construction, which would mean that they've approved the point of beginning, which is where the paving ends now, and the point of ending, which is 50 feet past the east driveway, for all construction improvements. If they wanted work done at the turnaround area, our point of ending would be at the turnaround area. So they have approved the limits of construction and improvements.
Right. So they have not actually addressed whether the cul-de-sac turnaround at the end meets their standards or not. And that is basically what needs to be done related to this condition for a special use permit, which is, as I said, which is a condition that says that with this change, that the road can support the activity. The problem is that this is a more intensive activity. We're more likely to have large vehicles go down there, especially emergency vehicles, but even perhaps a delivery vehicle that's going to end up down at the end of the road. It happens, and they need to be able to turn around safely. And I can turn around my Ford Escape in that space right now, but I wouldn't want to take a box truck back there, and I certainly wouldn't want to take a fire truck back there. Especially in muddy weather, rainy and wet weather. So what we're looking for is the road commission to basically confirm that cul-de-sac turnaround, either as it is right now, meets their standards, and put that in writing, or they need to obviously make whatever changes need to be made to bring that turnaround up to the county standards for gravel turnaround. And that would include dealing with the drainage issue, because as I said, right now it drains the wrong way.
I guess, Pat Gaffney and everybody over at the road commission have approved the limits of construction as shown.
I think y'all are talking past each other right now. Commissioner Fuller?
Well, I had my hand up from the previous question, but it sounds like the applicant needs to get with the road commission, Pat and discuss the gravel turnaround, whether it's adding a catch basin and a culvert to drain the middle or regrade the turnaround.
And Commissioner Buckley and then Commissioner Theron.
Yeah, I'm just, I guess I'm just confused. This was a condition that was set with the passage of the SUP. It's not as though the condition wasn't out there. Is there, I guess I'm wondering what the rationale is or what the reason is for not addressing this. Regardless, it's as a condition, that's the way it was set up. Is there a rationale for why that hasn't been addressed with the road commission yet?
So we've been working with the road commission all along, and all along the agreement between the design team and the road commission has always been improvements to the east driveway, the east drive limits. To be honest with you, I haven't heard about the drainage issue at the cul-de-sac until 15 minutes ago. I guess we didn't even realize that was an issue. Like I said, Pat Gaffney has seen the plans 3 times. We've been going back and forth on some various design issues with the drainage. But as far as the limits of construction go, and like you said, the point of beginning, the point of ending of the improvements to Remus Road, the road commission has approved those limits.
When you say limits of construction, when the special use permit, which is the legal avenue by which this site can be built at this location, the special use permit requires, as a condition of its approval, this any necessary remediation for a cul-de-sac turnaround. When you say the limits of construction, I don't understand why that is not included. I mean, I get that you are saying that you just learned of this 15 minutes ago, but why are the limits? Why is that not included as part of the limits?
I guess because our agreement with the road commission all along has been that we improve the road to the east driveway. So that's what we've been showing. That's again, that's all of our correspondence with the road commission back and forth, which has been plenty. That's always been the agreement, and that's what they've agreed to, I guess. So that's what we've shown.
But it's Union Township that is approving the site. Well, it seems like we're ignoring what Union Township is set forth as part of the project.
I guess I don't feel like we're getting anywhere. Daryl, do you have anything to add to this?
Yeah, I don't know that the special use permit was specific in, I mean, I know it talked about, it referenced road commission standards and following that. And, you know, it didn't say, and we talked about this afterwards, about whether it was gravel or whether it was pavement, whatever it was, it needed to follow road commission standards. And if we've asked the road commission to review it, and it's been in front of them all of this time, and we've had back and forth, and it meets their standard, I don't understand how we're not meeting that requirement of the special use permit that was granted.
And again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it doesn't sound like you've asked the road commission to look at this turnaround.
That's because we didn't know the drainage issue until 15 minutes ago. I mean, I guess, and again, the fire department's reviewed it. Everybody's reviewed it. Nothing's ever come up about the size or the drainage of the turnaround.
So if I may, I'd like to read that condition, because it actually doesn't talk about road commission standards. Condition number 3 of the special use permit approval says completion of the roadway paving as proposed on the plan, which is basically to the east driveway or just beyond it. And then it says, comma, and additional width, surface, and turnaround area improvements along the remaining length of East Remus Road to US 127. That's the condition. And so, as I said, if you drive down that road, The road commission has done some work this year on it from what it was. And the road itself is now 2 lanes wide, gravel surface all the way down to the turnaround. And then it's basically a single lane wide turnaround with a muddy area in the middle. They actually don't appear to have done anything to the turnaround in terms of trying to improve that base, but they did improve the road to the turnaround. So now we're really looking at the turnaround needs to be brought up to specs. But the condition doesn't say anything about what meeting road commission standards. It simply says, and additional width, surface, and turnaround area improvements along the remaining length to US 127.
But wouldn't the additional width and turnaround area be subject to road commission standards?
Well, again, from what Troy has described, I haven't seen the email that was sent. If it was sent to the township yet, but based on what Troy has described, the road commission has not addressed whether the turnaround area down there meets their specs or not.
I would add that a 30 to 40 ton engine cannot take a wheel off on a shoulder of a road without dumping the entire engine, let alone something that has inward draining water. That it simply can't be possible that the road commission is saying that's sufficient for a turnaround of heavy equipment.
Peter, can you verify that you received the email yesterday from the road commission?
Yeah. So the email that was sent yesterday from Pat, and then I got his notes today from Pat on his plan. In the email, Pat Gaffney states, Troy, the following items are acceptable and meet ICRC standards. 1, limit of road improvement. In parentheses, he has passed the East Drive entrance. Number 2, the drive entrances meet standards for commercial driveway. The following items still need to be addressed. 1, typical cross-section proposed leaving existing roadbed in place. Is there class 2 material for subbase, and the existing gravel proposed to be left in place is probably not 22A aggregate. Number 2, ditch grade, center line grades. Ditch grades need to be low enough to be able to drain the subbase of the road and not trap water. Then he states he'll be back on the 19th and send you up his marked plans. And I got his marked up plans with comments that he has on each page of those.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to recognize Commissioner Thering.
Has it been your intention not to go any farther than the East Drive?
Yes.
Thank you.
Has township staff had any direct conversations with the road commission about the turnaround?
I have not had a direct conversations with the road commission about the turnaround area. No.
Okay. Well, I do recall when we did the special use, I remember the discussion, there being discussion about that east portion of the road and the need for potential need for some sorts of improvements. And I think that's why that language is in the conditions of the special use permit. So I'm having a hard time understanding why that wasn't factored into the plans in some respect. As the president of the county commission pointed out, it's a $40+ million project. This portion of it is probably, I don't know what that sort of, adding some gravel and regrading a road is probably a relatively small portion of that.
Troy, if we're talking about grading and drainage, I don't know, I'm an architect, I'm not a civil engineer, so I don't know necessarily what that entails for adding some gravel and making some make it a little bit more suitable for drainage. Is that something that can reasonably be done? Is that, I don't know what that looks like from a work effort and cost standpoint, but is that something we can consider for the county?
I'll have that discussion with Mr. Gaffney.
Okay.
Other questions or comments from commissioners on that issue or any other issue? Commissioner Fuller.
How about the public service utility department? Is their review forthcoming, or is there concerns, discussion with the director?
I do know that she is reviewing the latest final site plan. Right now, it's details. There is no question that the property can be served with water and sewer, so it's just all getting the details correct. That review is simply not complete at this time, which is why we left it as a condition. But because these are details that will not affect the overall site design, we're comfortable with that review taking place after final site plan approval, if you agree.
Other comments and questions? Any other questions for the applicants? If not, then I guess I'm going to suggest perhaps that we have the applicants, will transport them back to the attendee side. They'll stay and presumably and be available if there are additional questions. But if we want to move to our deliberations, I think it'd be appropriate to do that.
Okay.
Okay. So it's before us, and you've heard the discussion, and you know what the options are. So I'm opening the floor for discussion of the situation. Commissioner Thering and then Commissioner Fuller.
I definitely understand not wanting to pave beyond the East Drive. I mean, I'm sure they're very budget sensitive, behind schedule, and this kind of throws a wrench into things. But it was from the very beginning. That's I'm kind of confused. I understood what number 3 meant. So if that was something that they really didn't have intentions of doing as I asked the question, then why did not that come up? That's what I'm trying to understand now. As they're answering our questions, they just refer to beyond the East Drive. So the intention was to never go beyond the East Drive. If there was something we need to discuss, why are we discussing that now? I think we should have they should have said something to us before now so that we could have the discussion of, okay, we're not going to, they don't have the intention of going beyond the East Drive. Is there something that we can work with? Is there something that we can do? I feel like we're just finding this out now. So I'm just trying to understand. Maybe somebody here could help.
Well, I don't think they ever intended to pave beyond that point, but the discussion was, as Rodney's pointed out, that the turnaround in particular, but other parts of the road, if it were going to remain gravel, it would still need some sort of improvement in the event. I'm assuming it's really only in the event that a vehicle somehow fails to turn around in their property and then continues down in, they have to be able to safely turn around and not get stopped. But they indicated that they weren't going to pave it, but the, the special use indicated that it was going to get improved to the point where it would be safe. So we've got Commissioner Fuller and then Commissioner Buckley.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think our intent as a board was to pave that section of road, but improve the gravel surface, which from what Rodney says, the majority of it has already been completed by the road commission. So we're left with a cul-de-sac. And like Phil said, I think this is very minor dollar figure to make this improvement, to get this project moving. And I do like their landscape modifications and moving things around where the headlight glare would be improved. And I am not opposed to the sidewalk relief also. If it's acceptable to the developer to improve the turnaround, I would have no problem with this.
Okay. Commissioner Buckley and then back to Commissioner Thayer.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of, first and foremost, I'm very much in favor of approving this site plan. I do find it rather frustrating that somehow some sort of delay has been heaped upon the planning commission when we've been accommodating at every turn. However, that said, the conversation around, that condition in the SUP is for us not to determine what type of service that needs. I can speak from experience. If you move a large vehicle along an unimproved roadway like that, it will be laying on its side. I've been in vehicles when that's happened. So if you can improve it to the point where it's only gravel, then that's great. Do so. That's why we did not say pavement. If it requires pavement in order to be able to turn around a 40 to 50 foot long engine that might weigh 40 tons, then so be it, pave it. But there are legitimate safety concerns with vehicles of that size moving along roadways. And if they are unimproved, again, this is a condition that we have set forth. So, I would echo I would echo Commissioner Fuller's sentiment in the sense that I'm happy with the site plan. We're not, and I'm happy with moving forward with a motion that would include that as a condition that they do get, an approval based on the type of vehicle that could potentially be turning around back there. If they get it, then by all means, let's move forward with something like this.
Okay. Commissioner Thayer?
Would it be possible just to put the turnaround right at the end of their proposed, rather than all the way to 127?
That would entirely be up to the road commission. If certainly there's been cases where there's been a paved turnaround at the end of their pavement, for example, and then there's a gravel road that continues on. There is additional land. I think they mentioned it, that there are properties on the other side of the road that are served by Remus, so that we really can't just shorten the road up. But really, the problem with the cul-de-sac closer in is it would take widening the road right of way, and probably more grading on their part on their own property to create the space for the cul-de-sac. It would actually, I suspect, be far more expensive than simply fixing the gravel cul-de-sac at the end.
It also violates the actual condition that's set forth in the SUP.
Right.
Commissioner Darren?
Well, obviously we have a communication issue, no matter where it is, but I think it's between our municipalities. Why isn't the road commission more worried about the shape of that cul-de-sac than the Union Township Planning Commission? I would assume the road commission is going to put their heavy trucks down there to plow the road or grade the road. Why aren't they addressing the shape of that cul-de-sac and bringing it up to county standards? along with, and it meets then our special use permit request.
Commissioner Lapp.
Well, just to follow on what Commissioner Darren just said, it's possible that the road commission does think that that cul-de-sac is acceptable, but I think we just need to see it in print, correct? There just needs to be a record that the road commission says that meets their standards, even if Rodney doesn't think it does, but if the road commission says it does, then that would meet the condition of the special use permit. Which
Do
is
we
what we're
get that
asking,
on every,
correct?
do we get that on every request?
Well,
Do we
this,
get that whether there's a cul-de-sac at the end of any road, just fictitiously, is that it something that we request from the county road commission in order to approve special use permits?
well, we haven't had a request like this one, where essentially this was a farm field on essentially on an unimproved road that they're wanting to turn into a significant municipal facility. So it's a big change of use. We have not had something like this that I'm aware of anyway, at least in recent years, because most of our development activity takes place on existing roads that are completely appropriate for them. They're already set up properly for road access and to serve far more intensive use. This road was not, and so that's why the condition was put on it.
So with that said, is the county going to assume ownership of that road after it's been improved to the line of construction and beyond to the cul-de-sac?
Well, it's already a county road.
So don't they have to bring it up to a county standard?
Let's per the special use permit condition, yes, it needs to be improved so that there's a proper turnaround area at the end. And yes, if the road commission were to go out there and put it in writing that turnaround area meets all their standards, then I would say that we can't really require anything more of them than that. However, I cannot imagine that they can actually say that about that particular turnaround simply because the drainage is going the wrong way. And so as it is, I can't imagine that it meets the county road commission standards. But if they're willing to put their name on it and put it in writing that it does, then that would, as far as I'm concerned, that would meet that condition number 3 we've asked for, which is documentation of compliance.
Okay.
Well, that would seem like the next logical step then, assuming that this gets recommended to go forward or approved to go forward, would be, I mean, that would be condition number 1, is getting them to say unequivocally whether it's acceptable or not. And if it's not, then you have the issue of what steps need to be taken to make it acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Other comments and questions? I agree. The project looks great. I mean, it looked great in the other location. It looks great in this location. It's really just a matter of getting this straightened out. But I haven't heard anything that's been said that satisfies me that the road commission did say unequivocally that, yes, that cul-de-sac is good enough in its current condition. I heard them say that they are satisfied with what they've proposed to do in their plan, as far as it goes to that end of, that 50 feet or whatever it is past that entrance. Oh, Commissioner Buckley, is that a hand up?
Yeah. To your point, I think it's clear that the road commission has not reviewed it. They've said as much in what Peter read into the record earlier. I guess at this point, it's really just a question of, I mean, at the risk of sounding like we're passing the buck, I guess I'm even curious. Can we, knowing that we have a condition in a special use permit that we have approved ourselves, I mean, can we motion to approve without meeting that condition that we set forth in the special use. I mean, obviously we have a sample motion in here to do so, so maybe that's the case, but in terms of if we were to proceed with a condition saying that we do get documentation of compliance, it's at that point it's between the county and the developer to determine how or who improves that road. That's not a question that we're asked to answer, that we're tasked with answering at this point. Is that correct, or am I mistaken there?
I think you're right, but if Rodney wants to speak, and then we'll go to Jessica.
Yeah, it certainly it is up to the applicant and the road commission to determine how best to meet that condition. You certainly can, essentially what if you go with the staff recommendation for the 3 conditions, you'd essentially be carrying that special use condition forward, making it also then a final site plan condition. And staff would simply verify that it's been met before we would allow the project to start construction. So you certainly can take that action. Ultimately, though, it will be up to the applicant to and the road commission to address how to take care of that turnaround area and to provide the documentation to show that.
Well, and I apologize, I don't want to step on Commissioner Lapp or Commissioner LaBelle here, but just to follow up, Rodney. The condition is there in the SUP. So we have a motion that does list the conditions, but even the motion to approve that doesn't cite the conditions again, does that necessarily negate the condition that's there already when we have a pretty clear notion that the road commission has not reviewed that?
Well, actually, the 3rd condition says provide the required documentation of compliance with the condition of the approved special use permit for, and then it quotes that condition. So it is in our recommended set of conditions, right, if you were to grant the conditional approval.
Right above it is a motion to approve without the conditions. And what I'm saying is, if we were to make a motion to approve without the first motion, not the second sample motion, does that negate the requirement of the SUP?
Well, essentially, you would be saying that they've met it, because as it notes, the motion to approve without conditions essentially says that they've met all the requirements, and so you would, in effect, be saying that they met the conditions of the special use permit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go to Commissioner Lapp first, and then Commissioner LaBelle.
If Commissioner LaBelle is also referring to this particular topic, he can go first. My question is on a different topic altogether.
Okay, yeah, just a couple questions, kind of a 2-part question. If the county commission deems that this extra area, this additional area is acceptable, does that meet what we have in the SUP? If it doesn't, then are we requiring more than what the county road commission requires or allows, or whatever their standard is? Are we? Yeah. So just kind of a 2-part question.
Yeah. So again, the special use permit is about whether the use is appropriate on a particular site. That's why we require special use for certain activities, is because there's a question. It might be okay in one spot, it may not be okay in another. In this case, it was determined that the county jail and sheriff's office would be appropriate on this site, provided that certain issues were addressed, water and sewer being one, and these additional road improvements being another. So in that sense, we have tied the condition and function of the road to allowing the use on this particular piece of property. We're not dictating how the road is improved. We're simply saying the road needs to be improved in a manner that with the additional improvements, and it's very specific: the width, surface, and turnaround area, and that those are necessary to allow for this particular use to be on this particular piece of property.
Even if it contradicts county road commission standards?
Well, so as Peter read, and as Mr. Gunder pointed out earlier, the road commission has not addressed the turnaround area. They have not addressed anything beyond the end of the area that is proposed to be paved in plus 50 feet. So right now, we don't know what the road commission thinks of that additional area because they didn't address it. And the applicant has been aware that we've been looking at the entire length of the road the whole time. Unfortunately, they chose otherwise, but they have been aware the whole time of this condition and why this condition was included. So as I said, if the road commission engineers put it in writing that cul-de-sac turnaround in its current condition meets all their criteria, that then there's not much more to be said.
And would you deem that meets the SUP then, if we get that information or that in writing from the County Road Commission? Would that mean that, okay, it meets the SUP?
Yeah, if the road commission is willing to say that cul-de-sac meets all of their standards, let's say it's basically the standards. If they're going to build that road new today as a gravel turnaround, that what's there now meets all their standards. If they're willing to put that in writing, then there's really nothing more to be said, because
that's all. That's what I was looking to get to, because that gets us to the end point here.
Right, but ultimately, as I said, the problem is the drainage is draining the wrong direction. They can't meet their standards because they have requirements for drainage.
I get that. So if we can somehow motion to approve with those conditions, if with them getting the documentation, it's stated right in there, that would suffice. If they came back and said that suffices everything that we've discussed tonight. Is that correct? Am I understanding that correctly?
What I would suggest, though, is to use that third condition as your model, because we really don't want to redo the special use standard. What you can do, if you wish, the third condition just quotes the standards: completion of the additional width, surface, and turnaround area. As I said, I don't have any issue with the width. I don't have any issue with the surface of the road. It is a 2-lane gravel road down to the turnaround. So if you wish to say completion of the additional turnaround area improvements and take off width and surface, I don't have any objection to that change, because we really are focused at this point on the turnaround area.
But do we know that the other portions of the road meet the commission standards?
Well, all I can tell you is by driving it, they appear to. I'd also be completely happy to let the road commission verify that in writing, and so that would be just meeting that third condition as it's written.
Yeah, so considering that, and this is to Doug's point, I don't think it was ever our intention to introduce Union Township standards that would be different from road commission standards. I don't think that was ever our intention, but I personally would be, if they're going to look at the turnaround, they might as well look at the whole portion of the road there and decide for themselves. I mean, the road commission, whether it's satisfactory or not. Commissioner Lapp.
This is an informational question on page 1 of the project location. The project site highlight includes a section, a narrow section on the south end that reaches out toward Isabella Road. And I'm wondering if that indeed is part of the project site, and if that is designed to provide future access to Isabella, or is it designed for traffic for the actual construction?
So the applicants have indicated that no plans to use that area to the south. You heard the project architect say that they have no intention to impact any of the existing vegetation along that southern area. That piece of property, I think, was picked up primarily because of the desire to protect that vegetative buffer through there. But it does not go all the way to Isabella.
Okay.
Right. It stops well before Isabella.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? So if we're comfortable, we can have a motion, or we can have further discussion. Your pleasure. Commissioner Buckley?
I'm ready to make a motion. I'd like to make a motion to approve PSPR 21-18 final site plan from Isabella County, the new Isabella County Jail and Sheriff's Office on approximately 44.58 acres of land. Parcel numbers 14-04-10-001-02 and 003-00 on the south side of East Remus Road in the northwest quarter of Section 24 and in the R2A 1 and 2 family zoning district, finding that the September 30th, 2021 site plan can comply with applicable zoning ordinance requirements for final site plan approval, including sections 14.2.p required site plan information and 14.2.s standards for site plan approval, subject to the following conditions. 1, the proposed temporary relief from sidewalk construction and proposed landscaping modification are approved as presented on the final site plan. 2, provide the remaining documentation of outside agency permits or approvals from the Township Public Services Department, Isabella County Road Commission, and State of Michigan to the zoning administrator prior to the issuance of a building permit. And 3, provide the required documentation of compliance with the condition of the approved special use permit for completion of the additional width, surface, and turnaround area improvements along the remaining length of East Remus Road to US 127 to the zoning administrator prior to the issuance of a building permit.
Okay, so the motion has been made by Buckley. Is there a second?
Support.
Second is by Fuller. Further discussion?
Yeah, just wanted clarification. So if the county road commission deems that this road, again, hypothetically saying that they deem that this road is okay, you get that in writing, they wouldn't be doing anything to number 3. So how does that work?
Oh,
Well,
I mean,
it would be considered the documentation of compliance, correct?
Okay,
correct.
that's just what I wanted to hear. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm accept that's good with me.
All right. Other comments or discussion of the motion? Commissioner Lapp.
Rodney, how long does it usually take for the Public Services Department and other departments to get back to the applicant with their permissions?
It simply depends on the site plan, the complexity of it. The public services review generally takes several weeks for a final site plan, because this is really where the rubber hits the road for them. They're wanting to see all the details at that point. Anyway, but it varies considerably. Just depends on the site plan.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I will ask for a roll call vote, please.
Darren,
Yes.
Albrecht,
Yes.
Fuller,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
Squidrito,
Yes.
Shingles,
Yes.
Thering,
Yes.
Lapp,
Yes.
LaBelle.
Yes.
Okay, 9 yeses, motion passed.
All right, excellent. Thank you. All right. So we've completed our new business item. Is there any other business that needs to come before us tonight that anyone is aware of? All right, if not, then next item is extended public comment. If there's anyone who would like to address the Planning Commission on any item, whether it was on tonight's agenda or not, they're invited to do so at this time. Just hit your raise hand button and give us your name and address for the minutes. And we ask you to limit your comments to 5 minutes on any issue. Extended public comment is open at 8:56. And looks like we have one. And
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Hear you? Yep.
Hi, Jim Horton again. Hey, just like to thank the Planning Commission for taking the time and diligence to hear the county out on this. So I thank you. I've been in your shoes and it's never an easy thing coming in front of a board. So thank you very much for taking the time and deliberating it so thoroughly. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing no additional public comments, we'll thank the public for their comments and go ahead and close that at 8:57. Next item is final board comment. Any comments from board members?
I just had one question. Sorry, maybe I should have raised my hand.
That's okay, go ahead.
I guess I'm still curious, and I kind of brought this up, not to this board, this is before I was even on the planning commission, but our agenda, there's really no way for anyone to talk about something that's on the agenda before it's actually discussed for anybody from the public, unless there's only, the only way would be a public hearing. They don't do this at the city. The city, you're able to speak and go through that. Well, I guess why is our township different? Well, I guess why would we not allow somebody to talk about something that is on the agenda before it's actually voted on?
So many things that we review, site plans in particular, there's not a public hearing requirement for them. In fact, essentially, if you find that they've met all the requirements, our ordinance and the state law says you must approve it. It's not a discretionary thing. It's actually fairly common that planning commissions have this framework where the initial public comment period is for items not on the agenda, just basically to give somebody the opportunity to bring something to your attention that maybe ought to be on the agenda. But in those cases where an item does not require a public hearing, the public input period is not really appropriate for it, because, like as I said, you do not have discretion to say no to a site plan that you find meets all the standards. If something like a special use permit, rezoning, things that need a public hearing, that's a different creature, and public comment is required for those before any action is taken.
Gotcha. No, that does make sense. I appreciate that explanation.
Okay, got Commissioner Darren and then Buckley.
I'd just like to comment on the presentation that Dave Coyne brought to us tonight. It was nice actually seeing actual data of an application of solar energy. I mean, you drive around and just like Commissioner Lapp, you've got solar panels on roofs, which really limits people who don't have that southern exposure. And, I've toyed with it out here west of the hall, and whether or not I was going to be able to go solar with the limited data I knew. But seeing the actual application and hearing the application of a 42 panel solar unit and whether or not it's useful in a residential area, that was very nice. And so I have no objection to raising it to 25 feet, because I think with that actual data, it does help me to make a decision on whether or not it could go in certain locations. But my question next is, what do we do with that information, and how do we move that forward as a commission?
So my understanding from conversations with Mr. Coyne is that their intent is to file a text amendment application to make the change. I suspect that I'll be having a conversation with him before the week is out, and so I'll find out a little bit more. But that was before their presentation. That was what they indicated they intended to do, was to essentially bring a text amendment to you to consider.
Okay.
Yeah, we've done those before. It's always unfortunate, the timing. I mean, if this had been 2 or 3 months ago, we could have just dumped it into the big pot that we were working on, but
right,
didn't have that luxury in this case. Commissioner Buckley?
Actually, Commissioner Darren kind of took the words out of my mouth. I did appreciate having all the data there. It was a nice presentation. My comment was really more towards, what a next step might be. So I do hope to see that there's a text interpretation or text amendments that would be coming up on an agenda soon. So that might be something that we can formally consider.
Okay. Commissioner Lapp?
If we're proposing to change a zoning ordinance, does that need to have a special hearing or a public hearing as part of it?
Yes, it would. Any amendment that came to you would require public hearing.
Other comments? So I was just going to ask, how is the November agenda looking?
We have a number of site plans floating around in various states. I expect that we're going to have a busy agenda.
Okay. All right.
And I don't know if you've been out on East Pickard Road, but the Dollar General project got underway this week. The Summer Hill Village Mobile Home Park Clubhouse is this close to getting underway. We're just waiting for some details to be able to issue their building permit. But anyway, the Dollar General is a big dirt pile out there right now. And the house that was there has been taken down.
Commissioner Darren?
Can I ask whatever happened with all of the construction that was going to happen here on West M20 with the site plan review? Did that all get squashed or?
M20 is going to be rebuilt. It is going to be rebuilt in 2023 and 2024. Basically the interchange area from the Home Depot driveway there, just east of the interchange to Isabella Road. They are intending to completely rebuild that in 2023, and that will include roundabouts at the interchanges and major work. They're taking the entire road out and rebuilding it from the base up. They're actually replacing storm drains underneath, and they're going to be making a huge mess out of our underground irrigation in the East EDA district. And then basically from Isabella West to Mission would be done in 2024. That's the plan at this point, but it definitely is going to be a complete reconstruction when that project starts.
That was great information. I didn't want to stop you, but I was more looking at the west side with the construction in the McGurk area with the corner gas station. And all that. Did that go away, or it seemed like it was quite a rush for a while?
Well, as you've seen over there on that property, there's been a lot of improvements to that corner. It's not a gas station, but now called dozers. They put in some exterior seating and other improvements. There've been some there's a site plan that's been modified a couple times that has gone through administrative approval for those changes. Those were things that can be approved administratively. At this point, there's no plans for a gas station there. Mr. McGurk is still under the obligation to put in sidewalks over there, but he has until end of 2022 to do that. So he's got some time yet.
Thank you.
Other comments? Okay, if not, then I thank the board members for their comments, and we've completed our agenda, so we'll stand in adjournment until November 16th.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.